Recently, New Zealand has experienced many anti-mandate protests. Often not just by people who are anti-mandate, but instead people who seem to oppose any form of COVID response whatsoever. At the core of this protest is a group called the Freedom and Rights Coalition. Today I want to talk about the idiocy and incoherence of this organisation and its activities. Incoherence arises out of the core interests of the group. They claim to support freedom and rights, as the name suggests. They also claim on their website, quote, "The Freedom and Rights Coalition includes thousands of Kiwis from all walks of life with varying frustrations, but we all agree, this government needs to go." End quote. You cannot simultaneously be unified by a love of freedom and rights and a hatred of the government. These groups may overlap to some extent perhaps, but there is a little problem. There are a lot of authoritarians who hate the government. Hating the government and hating freedom overlap to some extent, which makes the two uniting interests clash. This makes the whole organisation absurd. You cannot have both things as your unifying value, because in doing so you inevitably end up throwing out the value of freedom and rights, because unity and hatred of the government clashes with this ideal. You have to abandon one thing either way to prevent this ideological clash, and if you refuse to abandon either one, it is freedom and rights which will be going. This isn't just a theoretical clash either. There have been all manner of far-right losers affiliated with these protests. Closely linked to the protests is Destiny Church. Destiny Church is not compatible with freedom or rights. Destiny Church is literally a massive cult of personality built upon lies. The church is well known for disliking immigrants and hating LGBT people. Destiny Church is as antithetical to freedom as it gets, and it is at the core of these protests. It isn't just Destiny Church either. Literal Nazis have been involved. Quite funny that there are people comparing Jacinda Ardern to a Nazi, as they obliviously protest in a group that includes real Nazis. Freedom and rights, the only decent things these protesters had to talk about, go out the window in favour of mindless opposition to the government. All of the talk about the freedom and rights of the people becomes very unconvincing when you protest alongside all manner of far-right authoritarians who fantasize daily about stripping away those rights and freedoms. And that is because many of these people don't care about freedom or rights. They like the sound of the words, but they make it very clear how they really feel about these things when they associate with authoritarian lunatics. If you really believe in freedom and rights, at least have the courage to boot people who despise these things from your movement. How hard is it? People who really care about freedom don't team up with the biggest authoritarians in the country. The protests are a joke. There have been anti-mandate protests where the speakers have gone from talking about freedom, rights, and bodily autonomy 1 minute, and how evil abortion is the very next. 1 second they talk about freedom and autonomy, and then you realize they hate abortion and love conversion therapy. They don't care about freedom at all. They happily associate with authoritarian lunatics, or worse, they are authoritarian lunatics. If you think Jacinda Ardern is an evil tyrant, you obviously haven't spent enough time considering what the Christian fanatics and literal fascists you protest with would like to achieve. And one final thing. I don't like vaccine mandates very much. But the more I see these idiot anti-vaxxers, the more I support mandates. Not out of spite, but because I understand that with freedom comes responsibility. If we have no mandates, people need to do the right thing voluntarily, which a great many people have demonstrated that they will not. Freedom requires that the people be responsible. If people will not be responsible, then sometimes it becomes necessary to remove certain freedoms. Freedom, you see, has a price. I don't like vaccine mandates, but that means voluntary vaccinations for the vast majority, not anti-vax idiocy.